Good evening. Welcome to Oconee County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, October the 4th, 2022. If you're joining us virtually to comment during the public comment portions of the meeting, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. After a moment of silence, we're going to ask Daniel Haygood to lead us in the pledge. Please stand. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Yeah, first item of business will be to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted. Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is statement and remarks from citizens. This is for anything not on the agenda for tonight. Anyone virtually? Do you have any statements or remarks from commissioners? Do you want to announce the?
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I've got one.
Okay.
I had a citizen to approach me this morning, wanted me to bring, convey to the commissioners his appreciation to the appropriate county staff and departments for the great job that they're doing with our social media. So
Very good.
he just wanted, I wasn't sure who all was responsible. I know the Clean and Beautiful does that, Animal Services. So I just wanted to, he wanted to make sure that all the commission knew he appreciated it.
Very good. Thank you. So announce volunteers needed for an invasive species plant removal work days at Heritage Park. This is a joint venture between Oconee County Parks and Recreation, Keep Oconee County Beautiful Commission, also the Athens Land Trust and Kelmac Saddle Club. These dates will be work days will be from 9 to 1, weather permitting. The dates are October 25th, November 8th, November 22nd, December 6th, December 20th, January 3rd, January 16th, and January 31st, and then February 7th and 20th. So plenty of dates to get out and help with the party. Next item of business is to approve the minutes. This is for our regular meeting on September 13th and also September 27th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of September 13 and September 27. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is a presentation of a proclamation recognizing National 4-H Week and Master 4-H Award winners. So Commissioner Saxon's going to read the proclamation for us, and then we'll invite the 4-Hers on up for recognition.
Proclamation National 4-H Week. Whereas the young people of Georgia and Oconee County are our greatest natural resource. And whereas the 4-H program has assisted in the growth and development of Georgia and Oconee County youth for more than 114 years. And whereas adult volunteer leaders and advisors are devoting their talents, leadership, and resources to serving these leaders of tomorrow. And whereas Oconee County 4-H grows true leaders and entices young people and adults to become involved in the educational and entertaining projects offered by the 4-H program in Oconee County through the University of Georgia College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences Cooperative Extension. Now, therefore, we, the Oconee County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the week of October 2nd through 8th of 2022 as National 4-H Week in Oconee County, and we urge all our citizens to observe this important event and give the attention to which it is so rightly entitled. Signed, John Daniel, Chairman.
Daniel?
Well, thank y'all for having us out today. So my name is Daniel Queen, the Oconee County 4-H educator, and this week's National 4-H Week, and we're glad that we're able to celebrate that again this year and have the support of y'all like we do every year. But tonight's not about specifically 4-H, but it's about our 4-Hers that we have here today. To say that Oconee County 4-H has had a record-breaking year is an understatement. We had a total of 20 new Master 4-Hers this past year, which is a record as far as I know in Oconee County. To put that in perspective, the closest county behind us was 7 in our 40 district that we Northeast District that we had. Our judging teams have a national impact, which was definitely seen with our forestry judging contest in Western West Virginia. We also have 3 other teams that are going to be competing very soon. Our national poultry judging team, our national consumer judging team, and our national hippology team will be competing. 4 national teams in 6 months is a lot of work and a testament to how hard these kids work. We had close to 400 fifth grade students compete in our school project achievement series, where they presented on any topic for 4 to 6 minutes. And that was just over 33 hours of unique student interest led presentations. We had everything from how to become a large animal vet to American Sign Language to why Stetson Bennett is the greatest quarterback in the world. It's a great presentation. So like many of us in this room, we attended 5th grade summer camp this year at Rock Eagle 4-H Center and took over 200 kids there. We're back with our numbers before COVID, which is awesome and led to one of the highest populations at camp since they've been keeping record of that with over 1,100 total students there. We ranked in one of the top in the state with that. Our volunteers, which are an integral part of our program, had over 1,000 hours of volunteer service to Oconee County, and our program wouldn't be where it is without them. And I want to thank them for all the hard work they put in the last year. And lastly, we have one of the highest, regarded as one of the highest performing 4-H programs in the state. And I want to say thank y'all for all y'all support that y'all give us for being able to do this every year. And go ahead and present the awards if y'all have those. Awesome. So I'll call our 4-Hers up. We have a couple that have some previous commitments that they were unable to make it, like track, and a couple other teams of their own. So when I call you up, see, first up is going to be Alyssa Hay. Then we have Miss Roby Lucas. Now we have Molly Smith. Connor Watson. And last is Bryson Woodruff, who serves in the Northeast District Junior Board of Directors. Thank y'all.
Now we're going to move into our hearing on and actions on zoning matters. We'll read out the rules of engagement here tonight. First, the petition will be presented by the county staff with no time limit. The applicant and those signed up to speak for the petition shall be allowed a total of 20 minutes, less the applicant's reserved time for rebuttal. Those wishing to speak against will also receive a 20-minute time allotment. The public comment sections will then be closed and the Board of Commissioners will have an opportunity to ask questions as they see fit. And then the board shall take action as set out in the Unified Development Code. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and call our first case, which is rezone P22-0133, Leila Mae Moore Slayton. This is AG to B2 Business Highway District. It's 2.51 acres at 1050 Jimmy Daniel Road. It's a vacant parcel now. There's also a variance for this at P22-0190 for the same parcel, and it's for to reduce the minimum number of parking spaces from 107 to 58.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Again, this is P22-0133. Leila Mae Moore Slayton is the owner. This is located at Jimmy Daniel Road on parcel C01026. It's currently zoned AG in the Regional Center Character Area. And again, the request is a rezone from AG to B2 to allow for a commercial development consisting of office, warehouse, and recreational uses. And there is a companion special exception variance, P22-0190, that also has been requested in order to reduce the width of the parking as well. This is the concept plan that's enlarged and in your packet. These are the architectural images. And again, staff recommends approval, conditional approval, subject to the following conditions. Condition 1, 2, 3 are our standard conditions. Number 4, unless a special exception variance is approved by the Board of Commissioners, the minimum number of parking spaces allowed by the Unified Development Code shall be installed. Number 5, unless an administrative variance is approved, a 50-foot wide incompatible use buffer shall be installed along the eastern property line adjacent to the residential use. And then number 6, unless a special use is approved by the Board of Commissioners, outdoor storage shall be prohibited on the subject property per UDC section 36201B. We also, Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to staff recommendations. And then if we can switch over to the variance one as well, that's next. I'll go through that presentation. And again, P22-0190, same parcel. Again, this is a request to for a variance to UDC section 60404 table 6.1 to reduce the minimum number of parking spaces from 107 down to 58. The subject property is also included in a companion rezone, obviously, that we just discussed. This again is the concept plan that's in your application, in your packets. Submitted final plat. Again, staff recommends approval of this special exception as well with one condition. Thank you.
And now we're here from the owner or the agent of the owner.
Hey, good evening. I'm Richard Breedlove. I live at 1071 Cimarron Trail, Watkinsville. I'm with Dovetail Civil Design. We're the civil engineers for this proposed development. I'm here tonight to request this tract to be rezoned to B2 for the construction of a office warehouse building. The building's about 45,000 square feet. It'll be designed for office warehouse use. One of the earlier uses for the building will be for sports training, fitness, for like travel ball practice, private lessons, things like that. And then the ultimate use will be full office warehouse. The site is 2.5 acres. It's located just south of the Mercedes-Benz dealership and just east of the new office complex being built on Jimmy Daniel. Again, I'm the civil engineer. I'll be glad to answer any site technical questions you have about the site. Mr. Swan, the developer's here. He can answer any other questions you may have. Thanks.
Mr. Swan, did you want to speak now or just?
Do I need to give my address? I know some meetings I have to give my address.
Yeah.
Okay, 1041 Founders Lake Drive, Athens, Georgia, 30606. I'm Adam Swan. I've got the property under contract purchase. Like Richard said, we're proposing 45,000 approximately square foot of office warehouse space. Long term, it'll be office warehouse space. I've got a 9 and 10-year-old. They're both involved with sports. I'm involved with about 4 travel baseball teams. Field usage, bad weather, a lot of times we don't have space to practice. So in the interim, right now, where they're involved in sports, I'd like to use it for practice with baseball and basketball, have space. Long term, it'll be turned into office warehouse. So the parking variance, that's where I think the parking, reducing the parking comes into play, because a lot of it depends on the usage. And if we're proposing athletic facility usage, it increases parking a lot. So I think Guy and Richard could speak to this, but we're way above the requirement that would be for just office warehouse space. So I'll be happy to answer any questions too.
Thank
Thank y'all.
So one more thing about the parking, the office warehouse use only required 30-something parking spaces. We're proposing 57, I think. The health fitness was the closest category that we could find. And that was more for like a gym where you have so many people packed into a tight area. And so the parking calcs are really high for that. So we kind of did a weighted average and we came up with 107 spaces that would be needed using that, but obviously with this type of development, if you could picture a ball field with kids scattered around, no, they're not packed in there that dense. So we thought those numbers were a little high, but anyway, the reduction we're asking for from 107 to 58, would still be plenty of parking spaces for this site.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak for this rezone or variance? Anyone virtually? We have a Ian Taylor signed up to speak again.
Good evening. My name's Ian Taylor, 1331 Andrew Drive. I'm just a little concerned about this rezone going from agricultural to B2 right where it's at. My understanding was B2 was general commercial for highway oriented businesses. As far as I see, this piece of land doesn't border onto a highway at all, unless we're calling Jimmy Daniel a highway now, which might be after GDOT gets done with it. I don't know, but it just seems that it's just not appropriate for being right there. And there's a bunch of houses right across the road from it. There's no buffer or anything, you know, just literally right across the road. There's a whole bunch of houses sitting there. I just don't believe that that's the B2 is the appropriate rezoning for it. And I would just ask that you deny this rezone to a B2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak against? Yes, sir. You have to come to the front, please. Good.
My name is Thomas Moore. I live at 1710 Lane Creek Drive. So when I walked in here, I noticed a big sign with big bold letters. It was on that screen. It said Oconee County Board of Commissioners. Now I want you to ask yourselves what that means to you. I suspect, and I hope, it means you represent the interests of Oconee County residents, not big money developers and not any other kind of interests. To me, Oconee County means family. I grew up here. I respect that my friend, Mr. Swan, I think he's been involved in several travel baseball teams around here, he said. I also grew up doing sports here. And when I was growing up, I remember when the Epps Bridge Shopping Center was built. And I spent a lot of time there, but I wasn't spending enough time with my family. So when we have new shopping centers, new commercial interests, even for good reasons, I think we spend less time with the people that we love and the people that we care about. I know plenty of people that I grew up here. I can consider them part of my family even when I walked in. And I really like knowing the people that I grew up with, like knowing them by name. The bigger Oconee County gets, I think the less we're going to have that ability to know people by name. And so if you build the shopping center, I think you can be rest assured that kids who are already so removed from their families through iPhones and other electronic devices, they'll spend more and more time in these commercial areas than with their family. And I think the more we become like Gwinnett County, the less like Oconee County we will be. So please vote no on this rezone measure. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak against? Anyone virtually? Thank you. You have some time for rebuttal if you'd like to say anything else. No? Okay. Very good. With that, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portions on these, the rezone and the variance requests, and open up for any questions from commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple if I could ask.
Yes, sir.
With Mr. Herring, no comments were made about the outdoor storage exception. Has that been withdrawn?
Yes, sir. My understanding is an email was sent to the board, and Mr. Swan could probably speak to that. But we had a condition that also suggested that or required that it have a special use if they did intend to have an outdoor storage use. And I believe at the Planning Commission, they've stated that they do not wish to do that any longer.
Could you speak to about the request for the variance on the 50-foot buffer?
Right, yes, sir. So if we can go back to the previous, there is on the concept plan that you have in your packets, there's an administrative request that will be applied for if the rezone is approved. Let's see if I can get to it. This one. And there it is. The 50-foot buffer is proposed to be reduced administratively which the UDC allows, that application to be sent just directly to our office for us to administer.
Thank you. I got one, Mr. Harris, when you sit down.
Yes.
It's fine. It's gotta be B2 because of the athletic part to it, or
The request was B2. The uses that are proposed are best fit in B2, yes.
does it fit in the OIP or OBP or anything like?
It would fit into OBP. The same uses are there.
Well, if it was gonna be turned into, some type of office area, would that not be the better approach to go after the, instead of a B2?
It's not necessarily a park. We did the OBP just down the road, that is actually an industrial or a business park, not industrial, but a business park. But if this is to be cut up into, other units or condoed out, then that could be an option.
Would we need to do a condition?
Well,
Basically,
if you were to approve it, the motion would be to approve for OBP instead of the B2.
Is that, if the long-term thing is to be office, if that's what I heard y'all say.
Office.
It's a warehouse. 10%. Okay. I don't think it'll be like that. There's more what you do for a living, that sort of thing. But it's still not like a highway business.
Well, it's not on a 4-lane highway, no, sir.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Swan. I appreciate you spending time with your kids, so. How long do you think it would be in that capacity before it was shipped?
Well, my kids are 9 and 10, so it's hard to tell how long they'll be involved in sports.
I can promise you it's a long time.
Right.
Then it just turns into grandkids. So.
But I don't see this being a shopping center. The previous gentleman said, or anything like that. The reason I want to build it is, one, I've got a construction company. I want to have a portion of it for a warehouse and office space for me. And then I'd like to use the bulk of it in the center. We designed it large enough to be able to put a full-scale infield in, so that if it is rain outside, we can hit infield and everything, and then have basketball area too. Get my daughter's involved in basketball, but in the long term, I could see it being used more for office warehouse, like a business like mine that needs a small office, and then in that other area, maybe storing supplies or something. So if that helps at all.
No, yeah, it does. It does.
Okay.
Again, I appreciate you being a good daddy.
Oh, well.
Well, I've been accused of that too, so. But our motion could be for OVP, couldn't it?
That's correct.
And that takes care of him, but it's not as if B2 is, that classification is on that 2-lane road. Let me ask y'all, can y'all live with that? It's not gonna change anything you do, is it?
I don't think so, but I'm not. They're used to it, so.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll entertain a motion on the rezone.
I'll make a motion to approve rezone P 22-0133. Leah May Moore, Slayton, AG, to OVP. 2.51 acres, 1050 Jimmy Daniel Road. And 6 conditions, excuse me.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve rezone request P 22-0133 from AG to OBP with 6 conditions. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Now we're entertaining a motion on the variance.
I make a motion to approve P 220190 Leland May Morris Slayton to reduce the minimum number of parking spaces from 107 to 58, plus or minus 2.51 acres, 1050 Jimmy Daniels Road, with one condition.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve variance P 22-0190 with one condition. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is rezone request P 22-0061. This is Donald Hammett. B1 to B1 general business and B2. This is 42.76 acres on Hog Mountain at US Highway 78. There's also a variance request P 22-0127 for the same parcel to increase allowable parking spaces from 47 to 84.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Again, this is P 22-0061, Don Hammond, applicant, owner. This is located at along Monroe Highway and Hog Mountain Road. The parcel number is A02025HA. It's currently zoned B1 in the Civic Center character area. And again, the request is to rezone the property from B1 General Business District to B1 and B2 Highway Business District for a mixed-use commercial development. This is the original rezone from 1990. This is the concept plan that was approved with rezone 457. This is a slightly larger version. Again, the rezone approved 252,000 square feet of mixed commercial development. The original current proposal that was submitted by the applicant was for 266,400 square feet of mixed commercial development. We have received a revised current proposal for 240,000 square feet of mixed commercial development. This was the original concept plan that was submitted that you have seen in your packet. This is the revised, let's see, sorry, here's revision number 1 that was submitted, and the current revision number 2 that was submitted. This shows the location of the proposed B2 zoning, the B1 zoning, 2 traffic circles, a slightly larger traffic circle than the previous version. These are the architectural images that were submitted with the application. And staff recommends conditional approval with our 3 standard conditions. Number 4, at this expense, the owner shall construct all transportation improvements recommended by the traffic study completed by A&R Engineering dated 5/18/22, or as otherwise approved by the Oconee County Public Works Director. Number 5, a 6-foot tall imitation wood vinyl fence shall be installed within the buffer along all property lines adjacent to Oconee Crossing subdivision. Number 6, a multi-use path with gated access to Oconee Crossing subdivision shall be constructed at Corporate Drive in lieu of the proposed pedestrian connection. 7, bicycle racks shall be installed on lots 3 and 12. Number 8, an internal sidewalk network shall connect all uses within the development to sidewalks along rights of way. Pedestrian connectivity shall be provided throughout the development, including raised decorative crosswalks. Final design of the sidewalk network shall be subject to approval of the planning director and shall be shown on preliminary plat and site plans for each phase of the development. Planning Commission recommended approval with the same conditions, except for condition number 5. They requested to change that to an earthen berm shall be constructed within the buffer and shall be planted with evergreen vegetation to be 6 foot tall at the time of planting. A 6 foot tall imitation wood vinyl fence shall also be installed where appropriate. Thank you.
Now we're here from the owner or the agent of the owner.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Carter, 3651 Mars Hill Road in Watkinsville. And if you would, I'd like to have a little presentation that for you tonight. Almost there. Okay, again, Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering representing Don Hammett for this rezone tonight. I'd like to take you a little bit back to when this project was originally rezoned, which was 1990. I'd like to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about the history of the property, and then about the development that we're proposing tonight. This is a copy of the signed preliminary plat that, and I have the signed copy with me here, that was originally approved in 1990. And just to orient ourselves, this is the Oconee Crossing subdivision that has been constructed. Here's their entrance, and here's Highway 53 and Highway 78 at the top of the page. So every slide that we have here will be oriented the same way. In 1990, the zoning code that dictated development in the county was based on a 1987 zoning code, which I have the zoning code here, believe it or not, was able to get that from the archives. And back in 1990, fast food restaurants were allowed in B1 zoning, for example. Large grocery stores, large shopping centers were allowed by right in B1 zoning. Now, in the current UDC, which was updated just a few years ago, we can't do fast food restaurants anymore in B1 zoning. We can't do buildings over 20,000 square feet, for example, in B1 zoning, which is why we're here tonight. So this grayed out area, if you will, is just a blow up of the commercial area that was approved in 1990. And the big red box here, I wanted to point out that this is a 172,000 square foot building. It is one building on the 1990 approved zoning plan. And there was also, in addition to the 172,000 square feet, there was 40,000 square feet of retail, 15,000 square feet of restaurant, 5,000 square foot convenience store, 10,000 square foot video rental store, 10,000 square foot bank. And I also want to point out in 1990, if you look at this plan, you know, as we evolve and kind of move through, now when we make applications for a zoning, we have to basically complete the whole site plan, right? Back in 1990, we didn't. And the reason I'm pointing that out is there are all these out parcels here and over here that are not shown as to be developed on this old plan in 1990, but in fact would be developed as commercial use. So you would have B1 property that abuts the Oconee Crossing subdivision here and here. So not only can we look at the zoning code back in 1990, we can also look at what's actually been built and what is actually zone B1. And so this is an aerial view of Butler's Crossing. And all the properties that are in the yellow color are currently still zoned B1. So back in the day when Butler's Crossing was developed, the public shopping center here, the McDonald's, the Zaxby's across the street, the old Dairy Queen across the street, all was zoned B1. So we know back then that we could do what we are asking to do today on the approved plan. Not only that, interestingly enough, you look at the Oconee connector, and this is Lowe's. It was built in 1997. Walmart, that was built around 2001. Of course, there's a Wendy's restaurant out front. All that is still zoned B1 today, and obviously very large buildings. This is what I'm calling the first round site plan. So this is the site plan that we submitted on the original application. The original site plan had the grocery store right here, pretty much right in the middle of this property here. So there's the grocery store. There's an 84,500 square foot retail building right here. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fast food drive-through restaurants on the original first round site plan, if you will. And all this we applied to keep as B1. So all this area would be zoned as B2. And so we did hear from the opposition. We heard that there were some things that the neighbors didn't like. And so we actually came out with a second round, a very significant change to the site plan. Basically went back to the drawing board and made a lot of changes to the second round site plan. Then after that second round site plan, we got comments back from the neighbor association, and we went to a third site plan. And so again, from the second to the third was another major shift. And this is the a rendered edition of the final site plan that Mr. Herring presented just a few minutes ago. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. Number one, if you look along the frontage here, there is 2 fast food restaurants instead of 4. So the developer agreed to significantly reduce that. As a matter of fact, cut it in half. Then we took this area where the grocery store was, and we moved it all the way up here, as close to Highway 53 as we could get it. Again, hearing from the opposition. We also heard that they wanted a transition area between the development and the neighborhood. So what we did, if you remember on the first round site plan, we had that 84,000 square foot, 84,500 square foot building. We actually broke that up into smaller buildings here. And so a few features of the new site plan, we have what we're calling a pedestrian corridor through here that will have a wider sidewalks, outdoor benches, pedestrian style lighting, raised pedestrian pass through the parking lot. And it'll be offset by 2 large roundabouts that'll really set the development off and really be a nice development for the county. The main entrances here, and here will be installed as a boulevard, meaning that they won't be just regular entrances that you normally see. There will be raised landscaped islands, medians, if you will, in the middle of them that'll really kind of set it apart. Another thing that we heard this is the new location of the grocery store. Behind the grocery store, there will be signs to try to prevent people from driving back there unless they're authorized vehicles. We will have, which we'll get into a little in a minute, the buffer. I think is a significant issue that we're going to talk about in just a minute, but we're offering a 75-foot landscape buffer with a 6-foot tall berm and a 6-foot fence on top of the berm. I think as Mr. Herring pointed out, we have dropped our total overall development to 240,000 square feet. So the original plan in 1990 had 252,000. We applied for 266,400, I believe, and we've dropped that down to 240,000 square feet, primarily to get a lot of the pedestrian areas and more green space in the development. I think this is a good slide, just from the fact that to show that we've tried to meet as much of the requirements from the homeowners as we can. Originally, we came in and we were trying to get all this zone to B2. And because of this common property line, what we decided to do was take this back part and keep it zone B2. Keep it zone B1. So right now, all this is zone B1. And what we're offering is to keep that parcel as B1 zoning. This area as well will remain B1. So the only area that shares a common property line with the subdivision that will be zone B2 is right behind the grocery store. The buffer area, the original 1990 plan had a 25-foot natural buffer on the commercial side and had a 25-foot natural buffer on the residential side. So that's how they made up the 50 feet. Now the UDC requires us to have a 50-foot landscape buffer. The requirement is to have the buffer, but we're also adding the berm and the fence, as well as an additional 25 feet. And this is a cross section. So if you look at the property line, this is the common property line. Oconee Crossing would be back here. As I mentioned, there is a 25-foot natural buffer that's platted right now back here. And we're offering to have a 6-foot 6-foot tall berm here, and then a 6-foot tall fence on top of the berm. So at the time of construction, that will be a 12-foot tall barrier there. As well as we're going to add quite a bit of evergreen shrubs and streetscape trees that will add really a nice buffer there between the commercial and the neighborhood. This is the cross section of what the buffer would look like. This is looking from the proposed commercial development back into the subdivision. You can see the fence there and the evergreens and the street trees. And this is just, again, another shot from the parking lot looking at the residential development. So as I mentioned earlier, we've gone through, we're on the third major shift on the site plan. And to my knowledge, we have met all of the significant issues, not all of them. And I'm sure you'll hear from the opposition that we're agreeable that we haven't met every suggestion or every requirement that they have. But I do feel like that we have met as much of the major ones, if not all the major items. So this is what we've agreed to do. We agreed to move the grocery store back to really where that 1990 plan had the very large building at the corner. So we moved the grocery store. We increased the landscape buffer to 75 feet with a 6-foot tall berm and the 6-foot fence. All the parcels adjoining the Oconee crossing will remain B1 zoning except for the grocery store parcel. We're reducing the number of fast food restaurants to 2. The total development size will be reduced to 240,000 square feet. We have numerous amenity areas and green space areas that we've added to the site plan. We'll have a pedestrian corridor with pedestrian-oriented design features and elements have also been added. We've added the boulevard entrances and the roundabouts, which will really set this development apart. We've added the signs for the authorized vehicles only behind the grocery store. And then on lot 12, which is on the corner, we've added some pedestrian areas, some gathering green space areas there. And then the car wash, which I didn't point out. Now the car wash is allowed in B1 zoning. So somebody can go out there and put a car wash up now. But there was a lot of discussion amongst the oppositions about the noise that's generated by car wash. And primarily from a car wash, the noise is from the vac producers that are out in the parking lot, normally in a car wash. And so what we've agreed to do is 2 things. Add a screening on the rear and the side property line, evergreen screening, to help reduce any noise that might come from the car wash. And also enclose the outdoor vac producers, actually enclose them in an enclosure, which will greatly reduce the noise in the car wash. And then finally, we agreed to put a gate at the end of Corporate Drive for the neighborhood if they want it. We're not sure if they want it or not, but we're willing to install a gate with a code lock or similar type mechanism. And once it's installed, then the neighborhood can maintain it or will maintain it and manage the gate operating system, and it'll be their responsibility after that. And the developer has agreed to install that in the event that the neighbors decide that they want it. Obviously, if they don't want it, we don't want to, we don't want to put it up. So you might ask yourself, well, why here? Well, other than the fact that this was approved in 1990 as a planned development, this is in the Civic Center character area. And part of the Civic Center character area includes non-residential uses, include a shopping center anchored with a large grocery store. And it goes on to say full service restaurants. This character area is a vibrant place where people can live, work, recreate, and shop. And so my understanding at one time, the character area up and down Highway 78 kind of fit this mold, so to speak. And then the map has been revised to include this intersection. So this circle is the Highway 53 and 78 intersection. And the red area is this commercial development that we're talking about tonight. So it fits very well within the character area. As far as the development regulations, we've already talked about the buffer, the parking regulations. We're going to meet. This development is not going to be over parked. Thank you. We will meet all the parking regulations. As you know, there is a parking maximum now in the county. So we're going to meet all those regulations. All the outdoor lightings will be LED, fully shielded, cut off type outdoor lighting. This development is about 8 miles from Butler's Crossing and is about 8 miles to the Oconee Connector. So if you think about where this property is located, it's in a very strategic part of the county for this type of development. I thought about Westland, for example, it's under construction right across the street from this development. There's going to be 400 homes. But once they're built, where are they going to shop? Where are they going to eat? More than likely, they're going to drive down 53 and go to a Butler's Crossing. Or they may go to a different county, may go over to Monroe. But this area is a good spot for the commercial development, which is why the character area reflects that. And this, I'll just go through this really quickly. This is some of the features of the site. I think this will be a very, very attractive development for the county, something that we don't really have to this level. Outdoor areas, gathering areas, a lot of green space and courtyards. I think it'll be a really nice development for the county and something that we can really be proud of. So in closing, the staff recommended approval. The planning commission recommended approval. We feel like that we have taken the last few months and done an awful lot of shifting and moving around. Now, again, I know it doesn't meet all of the desires of the neighbors, and we get that, but I do feel like that we have done an awful lot to try to make this development work and try to make it to where we can be proud of it as citizens of Oconee County. So with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Mr. Parkman.
I'll reserve. If you have any rebuttal time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
254. We're done. All right, we're going to those who signed up to speak against, and we'll start with Stanton Porter.
Good evening. My name is Stanton Porter. My address is 2925 Fern Hill Road in Bogart. As you know, I represent the Oconee Crossing Homeowners Association. I'd hope to come here tonight, especially considering the dialogue we've had the last 3 weeks, and tell the commissioners that this is how development should be. Developers should work with adjacent homeowners on developing a project that everyone can be in favor of. Sadly, though, we are not here with that position. Since the last meeting, we've worked diligently and extremely hard to try to come to an agreement with the developer on a site plan that the neighborhood could support. As we've maintained this entire time, my clients are not against development of this land. They all bought their house knowing that this land was set for a commercial development. But we believe that the decision you make tonight will steer all future development in Oconee County. This is going to be the sort of roadmap or symbol for how future commercial development will take place in Oconee. This case is an opportunity to show that Oconee will grow and develop in a certain way for decades. And we truly believe that much rides on tonight's vote. And we believe the site plan is currently constituted means that you must vote no on tonight's rezone request. Currently, Oconee County has no B2 development like this that's immediately adjacent to a residential subdivision. In fact, the B1 developments that Mr. Carter showed you earlier are all not immediately adjacent to a residential development. There's no big box grocery store or fast food restaurant in Oconee County that immediately abuts a residential subdivision. If you approve this request, it would change that forever. And we likely believe it would lead to additional requests for other parts of the county. How could the commissioner say no to future requests if you approve this tonight? We think this will change the very unique character of Oconee County. As I've said and written to you earlier, our clients worked hard with the developer over these last 3 weeks to try to come to an agreement. But the problem is these 3 weeks, which I believe is when the developer actually came to us in earnest about making concessions, was not enough time to work between the two sides. If you'll see on, this is their site plan, the big box store is right here. This is one of the largest problems that the homeowners association has with the current development. The original 1990 site plan, the retention pond was in between, was right along this property, in between the large retail commercial development and the neighborhood itself. In a site plan that our neighborhood, that my clients developed and submitted, that led to many of the changes that you see in this plan, we proposed putting the big box grocery store right here. And there's a number of reasons that it would benefit here. One, it abuts the divided highway of Highway 78 with a future traffic light right here. We all know the reason for the big box grocery stores, this is your anchor. This is what's the majority of the people are going to be coming to this whole development to go to. They're going to come here and then visit and frequent these other stores. Why should we put that over by Highway 53 that may not even have a traffic light? Their plan does not have a traffic light on Highway 53. So instead, this intersection here is going to be a complete nightmare. So instead of doing that, instead of moving it here as we asked, which would give this extra buffer of the retention pond between it and the neighborhood, instead they've moved it here. The reason that's given for that, the reason that they can't make that change and move this big box store from here to here is business, timing, and process. As I sit here tonight, gentlemen, if business, timing, and process is the reason in which you should approve this, then I don't think that's a good example for Oconee County. I want to make it a note that the applicant for this project made no attempt to reach out to the neighborhood prior to the filing of the rezone. When we say that we've worked hard in the last 3 weeks, that timetable was not on the part of the homeowners association. Instead, there's many counties in the state that require developers to hold public meetings and forums to work through these issues prior to a development plan actually being submitted. And in fact, maybe that should be something that Oconee County could adopt in the future. But here, we shouldn't push through a project of this nature without the proper input and consideration from a neighborhood. And 3 weeks, the last commissioners meeting was on the second Tuesday of the month because of Labor Day. So we've only had 3 weeks. We haven't been able to fully work through all that, but there's just an unwillingness of the developer to delay this another month to try to make this work. As I mentioned, the developer now refuses to delay this project for a short 4-week period to finish working through these issues. They want to push the project through. If this is the position of the applicant, which it is here tonight since they're going forward, then the county should deny this request. If you deny this request, then the developer and the neighborhood can have the next 12 months to work together on a new site plan, and the developer can make a new application in a year with the neighborhood support. We believe that's the best avenue for you to follow tonight. Except for my time at the University of Georgia, I've lived in Oconee County my entire life. I think it's the best place in the country to live. To keep it that way, we need to be smart about all future growth and development. It's a fact that developers need and want to develop in Oconee County a lot more than Oconee County needs developers to come here. At the last Board of Commissioners meeting, Chairman Daniel cited a statistic when talking about the T-Splosh that at Oconee Connector Development, 80% of the shoppers are from outside of the county. There's no reason to believe that the shoppers that are going to be coming to this neighborhood, that statistic will be any different. We're very close to the Walton and Barrow County property lines. If Oconee County is going to approve any development like this one, it needs to be with the support of the community. And the fact is, when you see for the people here that are behind me, the people that are watching online, is that this community, that Oconee County, does not support this rezone request as it's currently planned. We're asking you to vote no on tonight's rezone P2261.
Paul.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners. My name is Paul Bludeff, and I live at 1660 Oconee Crossing Circle, which is part of the Oconee Crossing subdivision. Today, I will cover lots of things, lots of issues, and just the whole controversy of this thing. And let's just skip right to the points of why this development actually should not be approved as it is. I'm sorry for my voice. So the first reason is the loophole in the Unified Development Code. And I understand that Mr. Guy Herring has a different opinion, that it's not a loophole, but I will actually explain to you why it is. So I'm referring to the protections that exist under B1, but do not exist for some reason under B2. I mean, there are some reasons, probably logical, but we are all aware this protection is service areas, delivery areas, and dumpster areas shall be directed and located away from any residential site of the development. And in no case shall they be located directly between the building and any residential lot. So why is it a loophole? I can tell you there are two reasons. The first reason is it allows someone, in this case, the developer, to basically remove some existing rights and protections from myself and actually from my neighbor. So I bought my house and my neighbor, we bought our houses in 2021 with a legal understanding that our houses, our lots would be protected against a development like this. And it doesn't really matter when we bought the houses because these protections were introduced in 2019. And just like, with, let's say, car emission standards, every manufacturer must follow them. So right now, they're just abusing this lack of protection, and that's how they're building this grocery store actually next to my house. The second reason why it's a loophole, it allows someone to enrich themselves at the expense and actually hardship of another person. And let's break this one down quickly into three easy explanations why I guess it happens. The first one is having a service delivery and dumpster area in between residential areas, and let's say a store, is a negative impact. Hence, the existing protection under B1. Secondly, simple rezoning from B1 to B2 will not make this negative impact into a positive impact, however you want to spin it. And thirdly, let's be honest, negative impacts always decrease the value of the land and the house it's on. So let's combine these three things. As a result, Mr. Hammett, the owner of this land, is benefiting from the whole rezone, potential rezone, I guess, by increasing the value of its land and at the same time decreasing the value of my land. So just by putting this grocery store and its servicing area next to my house. And you've been to my house, you know how close it is. And probably that's why the slides that we saw before, they did not have my house in there. You just saw some fake, tree buffer area. This is not where my house is. Anyway, and let's get back to the servicing area. I know it sounds not bad, but servicing area from the light research that we've done is about 20 trucks, 20 delivery trucks per day. This area next to a store is actually a trash compactor, which will probably have some humming noise, and they will have to extract some trash out of it. So that's the kind of the service area we're talking about. Anyway, let's move on to the next issue, the lack of impact analysis. So section 1206 of the UDC code says that there is something that needs to be, I guess, considered, and that's the effect on the existing use, usability, and or value of adjoining property. So that's the kind of thing that the applicant should address within their development application. And what this development application has for it is there will be no negative impact on adjoining property values. That's it. There is no analysis, but just like I've told you, there's absolutely simple process, like logical process, where there will be a negative impact. Yet again, there is no analysis. So yesterday, I actually reached out to one of the real estate agents and I asked him for his input of what kind of, I guess, negative impact to the value of my house I can expect. And he said it would be definitely minus 10%, I guess. And as we know, the biggest development, as we all know, the biggest investment a regular person like me makes in their life is actually buying a house. So my investment, just like that with this store, minus 10%. The next issue is the morals of the Board of Commissioners decision. So this is section 1208.03, and it's about basically approving the zoning change. And let me read it, please. So the purpose of this development code will be served and the health, safety, morals, aesthetics, convenience, order, prosperity, and general welfare is secured. The Board of Commissioners may approve or deny this application. If you deny this application, then everything is good. If you don't actually, so if you approve this application, then let me put it simply, just because the current supermarket placement affects only 2 families, as you can see, does not make it actually justifiable. Even if it affects 1 family, it does not make it justifiable. we should not discriminate people and everybody deserves the same treatment and approach. Now, I want to stop for a second here. And I just want to say that just these three things that I've just voiced, they are alone should actually make you deny this zone request. And the reason is, if you actually approve it, you're just closing your eyes on the existing issue and this loophole that will be abused over and over again, just like Stanton said. This is not the first development that's going to happen like this. We actually have another 30 acres next to us. And if you approve, that's going to be the way to go. Anyway, let's move on to the lack of flexibility within the map design from the developer. So you know that we've done multiple designs for the map. They've done multiple designs, but the biggest issue that we've had since August was the location of the grocery store. And this issue has never been addressed. In fact, it was moved from one location to another location. So from one neighbor to another neighbor. And right now it's actually next to me. And, you know, all those concessions, they're great, but right now they're just, you know, cherries and candies on top of the cake, but the major issue is not solved. In fact, if we were to completely give up all those concessions, they would not be able to proceed with their plan because they don't know what to do with a grocery store. That's why they're moving it here, and they're still affecting neighbors like me. Speaking of the lack of flexibility, every time we try to work with them and relocate, buildings, we try to move them actually to the right. We try to rotate them so that the servicing area is not in between us. But every time they would come back to us with this, we have an existing contractual obligation to the purchaser. What's the point of the discussion if for everything that we touch, we get a no, oh, you don't touch this one. So they basically did everything backwards. They sold every piece of the lot or majority of them. And now of course, they're struggling to be any flexible, with this development, of course. So they should have done it a different way. The next issue is parking spaces exceed the maximum allowed. Plus, there is a complete there is a complete butchering of our words. And let me explain why. So we're just wondering why the developer is asking and getting potentially more parking spaces than what's allowed. So, and we kind of know why it happened, but let me actually quote how it happened. The whole negotiation and conversation was this way. We sent them a conditional sentence, which consists of two parts. Each conditional sentence consists of two parts. The one that we sent to them was this. We are willing to concede most of those additional spaces. That means actually for a grocery store, as long as you will reduce parking spaces in other locations. That's what we said. So what they did, actually, they took one piece of the sentence that they liked the most, and then they actually adjusted, rephrased it. And in fact, they put it onto this map. So at the bottom to the right, you can see that it says HOA agreed to allow 74 parking spaces of what's allowed for the supermarket. That's not what we said. We said, if you do this, we can do this. Anyway, the next issue is, and I'm checking my time, the next issue is the questionable location of the car wash. Now, during the speech, they really didn't mention where the car wash, actually, you can see right now.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, sorry.
You have 5 minutes left to speak.
Okay. And then this car wash location is still very questionable. So forget about us, forget about the impact on us. You're going to put your names on this plan if you approve it. And then what you're going to have is, I went to a very comparable location. I actually waited for a very comparable. So just to be clear, there were no cars moving. There were no actually hand vacuums working. I was 200 feet away, and that actually places me exactly where the restaurant area is. So that kind of noise that you just heard. Now, the next issue is the public support. So I'll just be quick on this one. We have a petition that was signed by 700 people. They actually spent their time and they left close to 200 comments. I really hope that, we all read those, because we did. And it just, we wish the development had been great from the right beginning, then we would support it. And lastly, I want to cover, before I leave it to the rest of the people, I want to cover better land alternatives. I know it's a sore spot for the developer, but as of today, there is a better land that's actually 85 acres across Highway 78 across this development. And that land is for sale. I talked to the agent, and this land would serve a better purpose for such a development with a car wash, with a grocery store. We're not against the development. We would love to have some, restaurants, some local restaurants, some offices like that. But this kind of a nonsense that's compacted into this 43 acres should be actually above the highway. So I'll just conclude it quickly. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And this is about the responsibility that you have for other people when making decisions like today. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Jeff James. Yeah, just a little over 3 minutes.
I'll make it brief.
Okay.
Jeff James, 1081 Corporate Drive. I've struggled to decide what to bring to your attention, as you've already heard a great deal from both sides, and just not tonight, but for the past months alone. I can safely say, I'm sure this whole ordeal has drained everybody in this room. It's been a fight to say the least. But if your community, family, and way of life isn't worth fighting like hell for, I don't know what is. So that leads us here. With a courthouse full of local Oconee County residents standing here in solidarity to ask you, Board of Commissioners, to make the right decision on behalf of the county and vote no to this rezone that will substantially change the fabric of the place we love. Now, I've heard the word NIMBY thrown around a lot recently. I had no idea what it meant, but I guess it stands for not in my backyard. That part is understandable. Nobody would want this in their backyard. But I realize that you all have a duty to look out for the common good of Oconee County and not just an individual or neighborhood's interest. What's best for Oconee County? Not the developer, not myself, not a homeowner, Oconee Crossing, or any individual in this room. You have a duty as elected officials to be the safeguard for all of residents. It's a tough responsibility, and we really do appreciate you all taking it on. You've been entrusted as our officials to keep the interests of Oconee County and its people at the heart of your decision. So with that, us residents have provided a strong enough case to clearly show that approving this development is not for the betterment of the county. You've heard the zoning arguments and land use arguments, all of which are way over my head. But I think the bigger issue here is, and most importantly, you've heard an outcry from the community at large that they don't want to ruin the fabric of what makes Oconee County so great by this overdevelopment. I know you all have been inundated with emails and calls by fellow residents expressing their opposition. You've seen the signs across the county, many happily posted by local business owners showing their support. I mean, personally, almost every interaction I've had with a fellow resident has been about this development. And hands down, the majority of these interactions revolve around unified support behind our fight. People do not want to sacrifice what makes Oconee County an outstanding place to call home: a strong community, rich agricultural lands, and an educated approach to economic development. All in all, it's the best place around to raise a family, to send your kids to school, to enjoy retirement, and to build a fruitful life. Approving this development could be the precedent that changes all of that, and you have the opportunity to protect us against it. If you approve this rezone, it's not for the betterment of Oconee County, and especially won't be for the betterment of the people that live out there, loyal residents who proudly call Oconee County their home. Thank you for your time.
Got Grace Dietrich next. You have 17 seconds, unfortunately. All right, thank you. Marianne. Ezo. Okay.
Good evening, Mary Ann Izzo, and I live at 1061 Crossing Ridge in Bogart. 16 seconds. This is your legacy. We are at the precipice of developing Oconee County. Your decision tonight will make a difference with whether or not we are another Gwinnett County. Your decision is going to be what dictates now and future growth of Oconee County.
That's your.
And I implore you to please vote no. Thank you.
Mr. Carter, Mr. Parkman, you have 2 minutes and 54 seconds if you'd like to make a rebuttal. No. Very well. With that, we'll go ahead and close the public comments. We'll move to questions from commissioners.
Mr. Porter, excuse me, I've got one. For me? Yes, sir. As a representative of the HOA, can you pull the current map?
Pull
I'm
your-
sorry.
pull your
my
mic.
voice is going to.
Pull your mic closer. You gotta get real close to
Okay.
it.
Can you pull the current map up? Or drawing, whatever you want to call it? That one. If, the question to you is, if we were drawing it tonight, what would it look like? Can you help me out with that?
I can. So I think in what you would want is you've got residential here. We'd like a transitional zone of B1 zoning all along here. And so the biggest issue you've got is their B2 zoning goes up and is this section here. And so if you continued B1, this is zoning, you go to UGA and learn land use, you've got your transition zone in between residential and your heavier commercial use of B2. And that's why our proposal was to take this grocery store, turn it on the side where the loading docks would be on this side. You've got your red light, which they're proposing here on 78. This was, when 78 was built, this was designed for it. And so you'd have B2, B1, and then this is B1 here also. And so it gives that big buffer. You've either got this small retail and restaurant, these are drive-throughs, small retail restaurant buffer. And then here you've got this large detention or retention pond. And we're asking, what we were proposing was the parking for the grocery would be here. Grocery store would be here. You'd have great visibility from 78. People, majority that were coming to the grocery store would be turning in here versus, we think people coming to this grocery store, one, feel bad for strip ones. They're going to have a lot of people cutting through the backside of it right here to come to this grocery store. And then you've got this entrance right here, which traffic study does not say has to have a traffic light. And then we've got neighborhood entrance here. And so we know Dove Creek Middle's opening up here. And so this road's going to be backed up really bad here. It's going to be hard to turn left out if there's no lights. It's going to be hard to turn left out of the neighborhood. So our proposal, and this is what we were really working hard for, and why we wanted more time, was to have a full essential transition zone of B1, then have your B2 up on the 4-lane highway.
If the grocery store was further up towards Stripling's on the left and then the parking lot, does that mean what you're talking about?
I think it would. So if it kept some other B2, in other words, if this lot here was not B2, if it moved up there. A big fear is just is what this on the backside here. And Anderson developers tried to put some things in here, but it's just unavoidable for a 52,000 square foot big box grocery store. This is going to be in right up against the neighborhood. And there's a reason that there isn't any of these in the county, is because it shouldn't be. And so if it went up here, I'm not an engineer on where to put all the parking, but when we took my client was the neighborhood, what really spurred a large scale change on their part was where we sort of cookie cuttered this out and put it up here. So, but if it moved up here, they rearranged their parking. This is why we said 3 weeks wasn't enough time, is to work through these issues, and why we're saying deny to give us a year to do it. But I think that more thought needs to go into it before it's just approved.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, and I've been around a while, but on some of the rezones, the issue about B2, I'm not an advocate saying, but just to clear it up, are there examples where we got B2 next to residential?
There are, but specifically just up the road, the Meadowlands project, right there at Tallis Street. The other location of a proposed grocery, which we saw not too long ago. that backs up to the R1 subdivision there. There are several other locations throughout the county, not as large as this proposal, but there are locations where there's B2 adjacent to residential.
Or some of them, maybe all of them, for situations like this. Cause I'll be honest with you, I've been doing this long, this one most complicated ones because it was created as one package. And
Yes.
so
And that, you're correct. This is a PUD, similar to an MPD, and the other one over Meadowlands was an MPD. So we have, and that was the whole design behind PUDs and MPDs, was so that you could have a commercial component adjacent to a residential to help offset the tax burden, but also to have some services adjacent to that residential to limit number of trips throughout the county, right? So this is just another one of those. This was one of the earlier ones in 1990 that the county approved.
Thank you. That's good right there. I do have a question, Mr. Carter. Jeff, you can stand, if you can shout or whatever.
Just come on up, if you will.
yeah.
We got people online that can't
Okay.
hear.
My question is, can you enlighten us a little bit on the sewer issue?
Yes, we currently have a permit to install sewer down Highway 53, making a left of Highway 78, going down to the entrance to Westland that will connect into what will be the public sewer once Westland is complete.
You got a timeline on that one?
I do not have a hard timeline. I would think the earliest, well, I really can't answer that because I don't know exactly what Westland's timeline is, so.
Okay.
Is there agreement with Westland at this point?
Well, the permit stipulates that the Westland sewer has to be dedicated to the county before our line could become active.
So it's my understanding that that lift station is just now under construction. And then there's like a year warranty period before it actually turns over to the county after it's in operation. So we're talking significant time frame between when that would be available.
There is another, there was another option for gravity sewer that goes the other way, but that is not, we do not have a permit for that.
Okay. I guess, Mr. Partman, since we got on the sewer, if you got a second to come up.
Yes, sir. By the way, we submitted a copy of the sewer permit in my letter to y'all yesterday.
Yes, sir. That's what I got some questions from that letter.
Sure.
So it looks like the property was purchased in September 2005. So it looks like roughly it was 65,000 acres, what was paid to purchase at that time. 2011, the Stripling site was sold at basically $110,000 an acre. And then right now, the tax office has it about 40,000 an acre is the, there's a 2005 letter that references sewer availability, but it was issued to Jebco Ventures. Is that who Mr. Hammett bought it from?
I believe it was an agent or someone who was affiliated with the seller.
Okay. Part of that letter from Gary Dodd had a requirement to provide notice of sale of the property within 30 days. I didn't find anything, and I went out through all the open records requests that you requested. Did you find anything where that notice was provided to the county of the sale?
Mr. Chairman, I did not look for it.
Okay. No problem. But there's been no sewer capacity purchased by Mr. Hammond at this point.
I believe that it needs to be it can be purchased for commercial property
Yes.
later.
Yeah.
There is sewer, and there is we went through the permitting process, and my letter, an earlier letter went through all of the efforts that Mr. Hammett, that we on his behalf tried to do to get sewer at Dials Mill Pump Station. And we could not get any condemnation. We could not acquire right away to get to the pump station. There was underuse capacity there. And so we were willing to do all that. We were trying to work with Mr. Tamahan to get an easement, and that proved to be very, very difficult. And in my letter, we incurred engineering and legal costs of approximately, it's over $60,000 in trying to get sewer to this property starting in 2015. And one thing I'd like to say to y'all is, in terms of precedent, this does not set a precedent precisely because the plan was approved. The commissioners approved the plan in 1990, and it shows commercial right next to residential. And so it was allowed, and so it doesn't create a precedent going forward.
Look, let's stay with the sewer for just a minute. So the appraisal report note that you provided a page from the appraisal report that talked about connection to the sewer system was at the developer's expense.
Right.
So Mr. Hammond knew that was part of the investment to develop this property was connection to
correct.
sewer, and that there was no sewer there. And even our long-term sewer model didn't show the county installing anything in the 2005 timeframe. So that's kind of been an issue since the 90s when it was originally rezoned, was how were they going to handle sewer capacity?
But he has been willing to pay and continues to pay to get sewer, and he's been trying to get sewer since, I think, the time to start when the market was starting to approach, a time to develop.
Mhm.
That was about 2015 when his team made, very concerted efforts to try to work with the county, with the water department, the sewer department, to find a path to get to a pump station. And when Mr. Haney was director, he paid to have gravity line engineered. And then it was, no, we need to have a pump station. So he's explored like a number of options that before getting to the one where he can use the Westland tie-in.
And I guess that's part of my question along this line is this letter sort of implied that had the county responded or acted quickly, then the sewer would already be in place, and this would already be developed prior to the 2019 change to the UDC. So that's why I was going back through it, because looks like the second half of 2015 is when your client started the process. And the first availability letter was issued on September 25th of 2015, which was it was 16 calendar days after the first request to have such a letter. Let's see. There was also an email the very next day where our staff was actually researching, like you talked about with Dials Mill. There's a group of people that installed that pump station that you'd have to get permission from, and it looked like that was headed in the right direction at that time.
The sewer letter that I think you referred to was dated. There was a sewer letter that he relied on in buying the property in 2005 from Mr. Dodd.
Right, but there was a second request by the engineering group that was employed at the time for a reservation letter, availability letter. And that request was on September, I think it was 7th. And then it was issued on the 25th. That letter to Jeff Pittman and Andy Lovejoy of CEC Incorporated. It states availability letter expires in 1 year. It also says all costs associated with this project for connecting to existing water distribution system or sewer system collection system is responsibility of the developer. These costs may include offsite gravity sewer extensions, upsizing transmission facilities, such as pump stations or upgrades to pumping stations, contribution to the operation and maintenance of such costs. So it kind of goes on there. So it looks like gravity was mentioned at the beginning here. Then we go into June. Oh, excuse me, October 13th was the next exchange where Lovejoy was talking about pump stations, and Mr. Haney responded back within 4 hours of that conversation saying, but we need to explore gravity. There's several other, that was in June of 16 was when they came back with some plans. So October 13th of 2015, we had, Mr. Lovejoy announced that he was employed to design a pump station. Mr. Haney responded that same day with, we need to be exploring gravity. It was June of 23 of 2016 before those plans were submitted back. Again, they submitted on 23rd. We sent questions back on the 29th, asking for development plans, at which time Mr. Lovejoy said there were no development plans. They're just trying to market the site at this point, need to show sewer. And also, again, a gravity solution was needed for this location. Looks like the Water Resources had, in August of 2016, Carter Sloop do a feasibility study to make sure gravity would tie into that, which they showed it would, and it would be less expensive. November 2016, there was a submittal. And then in June, or excuse me, December 16, still no capacity was, unfortunately ran into some issues in 2017, as you know, and I think that's kind of where started the frustration with the agent here. But it appears to be consistent communication and quick communication that we're dealing with a gravity connection. And there seemed to be an implication that there was a lot of back and forth where the county was changing its mind, but all the documents in the open records request to me indicate that the county was clear as far as county staff about what kind of connection we were looking for. And then the extension permit, we kind of already talked about that, but it's that infrastructure is not in place, so there's still some time before sewer could be brought to the site. So that's why I want to go back through, because I just want to clear that up. From what I find, there was crystal clear communication about sewer connectivity and what the county was looking for. And I understand some of the issues you ran into, but I don't think that was related to anything that Oconee County or Oconee County staff was creating. So.
Yeah, I want to be clear about why I submitted the documentation. It's just to show how my client Don Hammett tried. He's been trying, and he's worked very hard. He asked about sewer before he bought the property. Gary Dodd assured him that there would be sewer if he's willing to pay for it. He is and has been willing to pay for it. And I just wanted to show you how much he's paid in property taxes since he bought the property in 2005, and how much he's spent in just making efforts to get sewer to the property up until the UDC changes in 2019. And really the only reason that we're seeking B2 rezoning is because of the amendments in the UDC of 2019. And, we believe that he had vested property rights going back to 2005 when he bought the property. When he bought the property and he spent money trying to bring sewer, and he's willing to spend the money. And so if I didn't mean to suggest that we were being critical of staff.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
I've got one while you stand there.
You don't think you'd ever use this as an example if you represented somebody down the road? If depending on what we vote tonight.
I think I would, I'm a chess player. I think I would know what the response is that was a unique situation because it was zoned together. The residential was zoned at the same time as the commercial for more square footage than we're asking for right now. And we have, despite that, there shouldn't be any, the opposition makes they keep saying, oh yeah, we understand about commercial development. We knew it was going to be there, but they're not acting like it. It's like not in my backyard. And we have made a lot of significant concessions, as Mr. Carter showed you earlier. And I had some communication with Mr. Caffrey on Friday. You know, we spoke for over an hour, and they were really, and also from Mr. Stan, they were we received some very favorable comments to the plan that's before you. And this is my interpretation of it, but for the two the two properties that are there at the Bevel, you know, we'd have a deal. We'd have support. The opposition would be dropped. That didn't happen. But it's really a big ask to say, oh, at the what we think is the last minute. Oh, it'd be fine if you know, we already moved the grocery store to one location after we added we moved it 25 feet back from the earlier location. And then they said, oh, our biggest issue is you got to move it. They didn't say, later they said, we want you to move it up to the northeast corner. They just said, we want you to move it. So we moved it there. We thought it made a lot of sense. And then it's okay, well, they don't like that. They want to move the Tractor Supply. They want to switch it out, and you just can't do that.
And I'm not asking, I just asked if you would use this as an example, if you were representing somebody else in how we position a zoning. You would never use it?
It's possible I would, but I think I know
That's
what
all.
I think I know what the answer would be. I don't think it would be a very compelling argument because this is such a unique situation. And it goes back to, it's already been approved in 1990, and it could have been developed without any of these restrictions that we're talking about before 2019.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know a lot of y'all are new to the zoning process, and this is very emotional, but it's not appropriate to be talking out like that where somebody else is talking. So I really appreciate it. If you to give the gentleman time to answer the questions that the commission's asking, so we can hear it, and let's just stop all that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I do have a question. Guy, what's the nearest location for commercial having sewer capacity? Where it's actually running?
I think it's up at Dickens Corner, I think.
Go ahead.
It's at Dials Mill.
Dallas Mill.
And that's gravity flow to that pump station, and
It comes from Dickens Corner, gravity to the pump station, and it pumps back up.
is the school on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Prince Avenue is also.
Is on it, right, yeah. So if you, it's hard to see on that inset up there, but it's roughly in that location where the highlighter is, right?
But there's been no sewer at the location we're talking about.
No, that's
Western
correct.
Doesn't have it, they don't have any sewer running yet.
No, the only I believe the pump station Mark was talking about, thank you, Alex, for zooming in on that, is right about here. That would be the gravity. None of this has been constructed, so the only location would be here, and I guess Prince Avenue, right in here.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
While you're there, I want to ask you a question about Mr. Porter's comments about the loop, or actually one of the citizens' comments about the loophole and then the morals and those type things. Can you address those for us?
Yeah, I can try. Yeah, I don't believe it's a loophole. I believe that's probably a misnomer, but B2 does not require those standards because they typically are along a 4-lane divided highway and aren't typically, part of a PUD. Obviously, in this case, that PUD was approved with the same uses that are in B2 now. It's just they were allowed in B1 at that time. As far as the morals go, and that's something that obviously you guys have to administer and review during your delegation.
I have a couple of questions for you, Mr.
Yes.
Henry. While we're on that, speak to the issue about the location of the dumpsters. There was an argument made that it shouldn't be, abutting a neighborhood. Could you speak to that?
Right, and that's what the B1, zoning has now as far as standards going, development standards, those dumpster areas would not be adjacent to a residential use. And the idea behind that is to minimize the amount of noise or traffic or impact on those residential properties.
But the fact that it's gonna be B2, then that's not an issue.
Under B2, it's not, there are no standards for that, for those uses, that's correct.
Okay, so the fact that that's gonna be a request for B2 allows them to have that adjacent to a.
Yeah, behind the grocery store, yes, that's correct.
And I'm telling this, I'm asking questions, audience, for the purpose, because we don't know how the vote's gonna go. So I have to ask these questions ahead of time, because after the motion's made, it's too late. So y'all bear with me. As far as the planning commission, they had recommended a fence, a 6-foot fence in addition to the 6-foot berm. And I noticed that in the conditions, it's opaque. Is there a technical word or a different type of material that if we wanted to make it more of a sound barrier, is there a different type of material or what?
There is, and we discussed this in a previous rezone as well. It's called a Simtech sound barrier fence. There's multiple products, but that's a standard that's out there that can be used to deflect sound. And that was one of the conditions we used on a previous rezone as well. The installation of that as a sound barrier.
But in the condition that's listed, it's mentioned opaque. That's different.
That's different. That's correct. No, the fence that's mentioned in this, in our conditions is not a Simtech sound barrier fence.
So if we go that direction, then, I think that's,
It could be,
important.
it could be added as a condition, obviously.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. If you go ahead and zone in up there on where the Tractor Supply, whatever's called on that corner, could you zoom in on that?
Yeah, we'll
I had a
get
question.
Alex.
I think I had asked you, but I wanted to kind of put it on the record. Help me understand the calls for a sales display in the parking lot along 78.
Yes, sir. If you scroll up to the top there, it's kind of hard to read
Yeah,
this one, but
it kind of blurs out, but is that are they requesting that as a seasonal or is that year round?
as it's shown, it would be a year-round display for merchandise on sale.
So what, now I know we have codes as far as that buffer between that parking lot and Highway 78, but is that really a screening or is
No.
that just more?
Right.
for-
It's not a screening buffer, it's a landscape buffer, and it's shown here. There's a 15-foot wide landscape strip. So you're gonna have a vehicle use screening area. That's typically a 3-foot hedge, a 3-foot tall evergreen hedge. And then you're gonna have your landscape trees, which are deciduous trees,
Yeah,
every 40 feet.
so that this sales display area would be visible
Yes, sir.
From
I believe that's their intent, but yes, sir.
and it's year round.
Yes, sir.
Is that having an impact on why they want more parking spaces? I mean, is that those two tied together, the fact they want to use part of the parking lot for?
Well, there could be parking spaces there so it may be, that might be a good question for them.
That may be an issue. I mean, that may not be an issue for my fellow commissioners, but I'm just concerned. I mean, I've seen these. I've never been in one, have no reason to go in one. I don't own a tractor. I'm sorry. But they have I know like Home Depot and Lowe's, they have things in the parking lot for sale, but those are seasonal.
Yeah, typically those are.
They're not there year round.
Yes, when they put their there are plants out there during the springtime or they're, you know, whether it's fireworks or Christmas trees or whatever. That's correct.
So as far as the county's code, there's nothing to prevent a year-round sales display there?
That's correct. Correct. Merchandise on sale can be displayed. Obviously, as a condition, you could remove that area. But otherwise, the code would allow display areas.
Okay. The next question I have, let's go over to the car wash. On the site plan. Again, I'm asking a question. I don't know how the vote's gonna go, but I need to get these points made before a motion is made. That you had told me that when they submit a site plan, it's virtually set.
That's correct. The intensity cannot be increased.
All right, where I'm headed now. On my copy where I can see with a magnifying glass, the word's out.
Yeah, if I may, Alex, let's go to the other page. Yes, go to the previous slide, that one. Let's see if we can zoom into that one. Yeah, it's not any better.
Okay,
I was trying to find a better copy. I apologize.
go back to the other one. The other one's
Okay.
better.
That's fine. Yes, thank you.
Point I'm trying to make is, I think one of the homeowners mentioned about, he had a video of a car wash. I think he said it's 200 feet away. Blow that up and make my question is that is saying those arrows of directions on the park and that to enter the car wash tunnel to get your car wash, you would enter from
That's it.
this end, the bottom end.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
All right, and then you would go through,
Mhm.
but the way they have submitted the plan, that they have to build it that way. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right, the reason I say that, I think, I know it is quite a distance from the homeowners. I think, Mr. Carter mentioned it's like 640 feet. So I'm dangerous with technology. You know that, don't you? Yeah.
Yes.
There's an app that you provided to commissioners. And I went out and I measured out 640 feet from the back of the car wash over there on Epps Bridge Parkway. And it took me to the far side of the Coles parking lot. So I went out there this morning and pulled into that spot. And guess what I can hear is that jet dryer.
Yeah.
So I think my point I was trying to make is that the jet dryer will be on the other end. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right,
Yes.
because I know the parking lot didn't have any buffers or buildings in between, but you could still hear that jet dryer 641 feet away from the car wash. And I frequent that car wash. So I asked him, I said, those vacuums run 12 hours a day, all day long. So I think that the offer of buffering that or whatever they were suggesting is probably a good idea. If this is approved.
Right, yes.
Okay.
And if you'll scroll out, Alex, I think that's mentioned up here in the call outs, what they're proposing. Which is the enhanced vegetation.
Okay. I got two more and I'll be through. The point about the buffer between the homeowners and the property, there's this discussion about this gate. And I know the original intent of the proposal in 1990 was it's unfortunately, Ms. James, you live on Corporate Drive. So I assume in 1990, they assumed that was going to go all the way to 78.
That's correct.
So, so the conversation's been about, access, to a gate. And I understand now, I'm reading, make sure I understand that if that's what the homeowners want, then they would be responsible for the upkeep, but not the installation.
That's what I believe I heard as well
Okay.
from the applicant.
So to put if they came back later, I mean, if they put in you wouldn't be having a 6-foot fence with 6-foot berm where the gate is, right? You would just have a kind of a
The-
alleyway through the berm and through the
That
gate.
would have to be determined through design if that was a condition.
Okay,
So had that as a condition for connectivity,
Yeah.
for pedestrian connectivity only. But as far as where the applicant and the HOA stand on that, I'm not sure.
well, I'm glad to see that the condition that they've reached was at 100% support from the homeowner, because I have talked to the homeowners out there who's in favor of the shopping center, but he's not in favor of the connectivity. So I just wanted to make sure about that.
Mhm.
My last question may be more of a question of Mr. Carter, but I'll ask you.
Mhm.
Is this development phased, or is everything gonna just be built out overnight once they get sewer?
My understanding is that the parkways, if you can zoom out a little bit, Alex, the parkways and the traffic circles, and of course, all of the infrastructure would go in first. That's my understanding, but that would be a good question for the applicant to clarify.
So that's a good question for Mr. Carter.
It is. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm down to that question, Mr. Carter. Let me ask you that.
The intent is to put all the infrastructure in, the roads, the roundabouts. It's not all gonna be built at one time. It's almost impossible to do everything at one time. But we feel like the grocery store, the car wash, the tractor supply would be first up, so to speak. But all the infrastructure would be put in. And can I address the outdoor storage on the tractor supply?
Let me finish
Sure.
on the phase. Would that also, when you say the infrastructure, would that also include all the landscaping?
All the berm will be put in.
I'm not talking about the berm. I know that would be,
Okay.
I'm talking about the landscaping around the roundabouts and all that, all the landscaping,
The landscaping around the roundabouts and the boulevards, yes, sir.
all that would. be
Not the trees like in the parking lots, for example, wouldn't be until the parking lots put in. But the landscaping on the boulevards and the roundabouts, yes. The street trees, yes.
And that would also include the landscape between the development and both the 4-lane highway and State Highway 53.
The frontage there, the street frontage, yes, sir. They would.
So what was that what about the around striplings? Is there any kind of buffer around, or landscaping or anything around striplings, or is it gonna be pretty much wide open?
There is, I believe, some trees and vegetation on Strickland's property that, of course, we can't do anything with. So I would think that there's going to be some vegetation left there. But then there also a landscape strip along the common property line that will be landscaped as
Okay.
well.
That was all. Go ahead and go back to the point you were gonna make.
Okay. On the outdoor storage, there is a suggestion by the end user, which I'm gonna say is Tractor Supply, that if the commission is not in favor of allowing the outdoor storage along the street frontage, they are willing to move that to the side. I have an exhibit here that's it's along this property. So here's Highway 78. So they would be moving it here over to there. And so they are okay with are able to move that.
They call it storage. Is that what you said they called it?
It is a display area. I'm sorry. Thank you for clearing that up. That's not storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carter. I've got a question while you're here. Yes, sir. Keep you from having to walk back and forth. All right. So speak to the location of the grocery store, where it is now versus what the homeowners had talked about. Is that a possibility to move it even further away from the residential area?
So I'll just speak to you from a engineering land planning perspective, not from a where the grocery store feels like they have to be for marketing purposes. That's a whole nother issue. But this property does fall off pretty significantly. Highway 78, if you drive down, it does go down. The further you go to the right of the property, it goes down. So if the grocery store, and if you look at the size of the grocery store and the parking they need, if it was shifted to where the homeowners wanted it, it would actually be about 20 feet below the pond. And so obviously you can't get stormwater from down here to up here with the pond. So just from a practical standpoint, they couldn't work down at that end of the property.
So as far as the pond, would there be an option to do underground retention for that?
Maybe a portion, but I don't think we could get it all in underground storage. Because again, the pond, if you could kind of pan over to that end of the property to the right side there. So if you look at the size of the grocery store with the parking and where that median break is, so everything to the right would have to be the grocery store, and that would fill up that whole area to the right. And so the pond would have to be moved up to the left, and there wouldn't be quite as much room to do underground, but certainly some of it could be an underground storage.
Go back to the far left. Let's look at that again, where the existing grocery store is. Could that grocery store be relocated to where the 4 retail spaces are located? Or even moved up closer to 78?
I think it is possible to move it closer to 78, again, from a design engineering standpoint. A couple of things that are working against us, and that is access through Strickland. So the further you move it up, the more skewed that is. But it could be moved up, some. Moving it over to Highway 53, I think would be very disjointed for a grocery store. So I hope that answers your question.
Where would the trucks enter with the current location?
They would enter either from Highway 53 or come in the first entrance on 78. I think here they may come in off Highway 78, come around the grocery store, and then back into the truck dock, and then leave out Highway 53 entrance. I'm just speculating there.
There was some mention about a traffic light at that other location. Is that still the plan?
So right now, the traffic study indicates a traffic signal would be warranted by GDOT at the median break on Highway 78. On the Highway 53 frontage, the thought is, according to the GDOT standards, it does not warrant a traffic light right now, but at some point in the future, they do feel like it would warrant a traffic signal.
So is there adequate distance between the 2 traffic signals, the one at the intersection of 53 and 78 and the new?
We have not done a in-depth analysis of that, but we do feel like there probably is enough separation.
I got one more guy, if you don't mind. Excuse me, my voice is going. I think I'm right. We do not do PUDs or MPDs anymore.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? That's a thing of the past.
That's right.
And because the developer wants to do something more extensive, bigger project than the 1990, we're here today to deal with that. And if we were starting back at square one, where this was typical AG property, we wouldn't do this, would we?
Just the commercial, so if we had the
That
residential
close, we
subdivision,
would
that's
not
correct.
do that. In 1990, they did something that we wouldn't be doing
That's
now.
Yes, sir.
So that's an issue I keep coming back to, and this is more a statement that, we don't do these things anymore, and there would be some type of buffer, maybe even another classification between B2 and a residential. I'm right?
Yes. Whether it's OIP or B1 or something like that, typically that's what we would do.
Thank you, that's all I got.
Mr. Chairman, I may have a question, maybe more of a, don't want Daniel to feel left out over there this evening. My understanding if we deny this tonight, that he has to wait how long before he can reapply?
It's a year.
A year? Okay. Now, Chuck's the old guy on the council, on the commission, I'm the young guy. So let me ask you a question, does he have an access for remedy through the courts? If he don't want to wait a year?
Certainly. But the reality is you can almost never get through the courts in a year. So a lot of times the smarter play, I think, is to continue working towards something that everybody can live with. If you file a lawsuit, there's a certain amount of time to answer, got to get on judge's calendar, there's depositions, all that just takes a long time.
So if we go through the courts, does that eliminate planning commission and public hearings and all that?
No, because what inevitably winds up happening is there might be some finding that we've zoned it unconstitutionally. We've got to come back and zone it in some constitutional manner. And that means we have a settlement agreement of some kind that says we will bring this in front of the board and they'll reconsider it. And then you vote on whether you want to do that or not. The danger of the zoning where you don't do that and your zoning is unconstitutional is the judge might just say, well, they can do whatever they want to.
All right, has there ever been a case where a judge crammed something down our throats that we didn't want? Okay.
We've had over the years, we have had very good luck in defending what we've done. And we haven't had a whole lot of zoning cases. Maybe in the time I've been doing this, and there's an attorney in the crowd who was involved with a couple of these, probably half a dozen, maybe 9 zoning lawsuits. The most recent one was the Verizon telephone. And then we had the other one was kind of atypical, was the Athens College of Ministry, where adjoining owners sued over us zoning it to be a seminary. But yeah, it's been a pretty long time since we've had any significant zoning litigation.
That was my next question. I think you just answered. So if it's approved, then the homeowners have a remedy as well through the courts?
They can, yes.
Okay. So in that case, who's the burden on? I mean, in either one of those cases, where's the burden?
Well, typically what happens, and this could be different in every case. If you voted not to allow the zoning and the developer sued us, the burden would be on us. If you rezoned it and the homeowner sued, then the developer has a really significant interest in defending the rezone, and they wind up being much more involved because they also get sued as part of it.
All right, so, and I'm doing this for my benefit as well as all the listening audience here. I mean, if a suit is filed, say if we approve it and the homeowners wanted to file a suit, does that stop it completely, or does it just keep on going and then it's, I mean, how does that work? I mean, is there a restraining order on any work being done, or how does that work?
Yeah, I've only had one of these, where the homeowners sued. Not sure I know the answer to that. I suspect everything will be stayed,
Okay,
pending some resolution of the lawsuit. But I can't tell you that I know that.
so where does the homeowner, if we turn it down and the developer says, does the homeowner should have I mean, they're not part of the
No.
suit or anything, so they don't have a,
No, we get our, litigators in harness and defend the lawsuit.
okay. Thank you.
January 2009, my first meeting as a commissioner was a lawsuit. And there was 10 times this number of people. So those were my first votes. Where you'd gone through the lawsuit, had to come back and be zoned. And it's one you dealt with when you first got on as well over at 441 in La Vista. Where it was just a flat rezone with no concept and no. And so that's one where we were forced to do some type of zoning with no concept plan. And it came back with a full vengeance later on. So,
But as it turned out, in that case, they didn't get what they originally asked for, though, did they?
right.
They got office, business, whatever, OIP or whatever.
Right. Just, but it still had to be rezoned again
Okay.
with much engagement. Any other questions? We'll entertain a motion on rezone P22-0061.
I'll make a motion to deny P 22-0061, Donald D. Hammett, B1 to B1 and B2. Hog Mountain Road, US Highway 78, commercial.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny rezone request P22-0061. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Gonna do the vote.
No point in hearing it, so it's moved at this point.
You need to check with them to pull it or?
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's.
I think they already, I know, yeah, I think so. I saw something.
Yeah, trouble.
Looks like they've already lost.
That's a problem.
Do we still got to vote in second?
Well, I said yes.
So we got to vote on second.
All right, next item is variance number P22-0127. Donald Hammett to increase the allowed parking spaces from 47 to 84. This is 42.76 acres on Hog Mountain Road. Ms.
I think
Catherine.
we can let Ms. Lickard approach the, podium.
I'm so excited to be in this position. I'm Kathy Zickert with Smith, Gambrell and Russell, and contrary to what he said, you can't hear me?
Yeah, Tracy's getting it.
Okay. Just
Okay.
speak up.
I'm Kathy Zickert with Smith, Gambrell and Russell, and I do represent the entity that's going to develop, if it is approved, the Tractor Supply store. And under these circumstances, I don't think we have a whole lot of choice about what we can do. So we would very much appreciate your indulgence if you would allow us to withdraw it. We will take a look and see if we can do something under B1. We're kind of separate and apart from all of this, and I will not bring it back to you with permanent storage on 78. either. And to set the record straight further, he was giving me a hard time. I've only had 2 of those 9 cases, so I do
And they
not.
were very clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've known each other a while. Anyway, if you would allow us to withdraw, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
We have a request to withdraw. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
We have a motion second to withdraw variance B 22-0127. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is consider appointment to the Oconee County Tourism and Visitors Bureau. This is for a term to begin immediately and expire June 30th, 2024.
I'm making a motion we appoint Greg Wilson to the one appointment that began immediately, expire 6/30/2024.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is consider appointments to the Oconee County Board of Elections and Registration for a term to begin immediately and expire December 31st, 2026.
I guess I can make that a motion, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate to
Yes, sir.
appoint John Thomas Hanley III to serve in that role as chair starting September 13th of this year to the end of 2026.
Very good.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And with the appointment of J2 Chair, that'll create a vacancy for his position. Do we have a motion for appointment there?
I think I got it right. I make a motion we appoint Sammy Jones to fill that position.
Shami.
Sean, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Sean.
you're good.
Jones.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Does any commissioner wish any item to be removed from the consent agenda? We'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent items as submitted. Second.
We have a motion and second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. We do not have need of an executive session. Commissioner Saxon.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.